I am not an expert on anything having to do with a firearm. That said, over the last couple of years, I have invested considerable amounts of time, money, energy, effort, etc. into developing a little bit of a skill set and a little bit of an awareness around this stuff. I've made a ton of mistakes along the way, and I've wasted a ton of money buying stupid shit that I didn't need, and I want to pass along a little bit of what I've learned in case it's helpful to somebody else who's just getting started. If you've paid attention to how to develop a skill set in shooting at all, you've probably noticed that a lot of folks who are really good dry fire, so that might be something worth considering. However, dry fire can be a little bit of a double-edged sword. You need some sort of feedback as you're training to make sure that you're baking the right stuff into muscle memory, and then what you're doing is going to pay off in live fire on the range and not bite you in the ass later. Since we're talking about dry fire, the feedback that we're getting should not be bullet holes down range, hopefully. Instead, we need some other form of feedback to make sure that what we're doing is actually going to work for us. And this is where newer shooters consistently ask about what stupid gimmicky laser they should buy to stick inside or on or around or somehow otherwise affixed to their firearm so that they can see what's happening downrange when they pull the trigger. Don't buy any of them. They're all a waste of money. I've probably tried every single one of them that's on the market, and I think they're all garbage for one reason or another. Primarily because we have these excellent little innovations already available that work great called red dots. I think when a lot of folks think about red dots on handguns, they primarily think about the benefit in live fire. I think about it the other way around. I think a red dot actually provides a shooter more value in dry fire, and there's kind of two reasons why. Number one, a red dot is going to give you all of the visual feedback that any kind of third-party accessory laser would downrange. As you're looking down the sights of the handgun, that red dot is going to present on the target just the same way that a laser, whether it's coming through the barrel or from underneath or whatever, it's going to visually look the same to you as a dot on the target. And through the cycle of a trigger press, you'll be able to clearly see whether that dot was yanked or moved at the last second as you make your dry fire shot. Now, the second reason that I like a red dot better than the laser dry fire systems that are out there is because it allows you to break your presentation down into sort of two phases. Obviously, you have the part of the deal where you're making a clean break on target and not disturbing the sights through a trigger press. But you can break your draw or your presentation down one step further and actually get visual feedback on the presentation out about whether you're roughly aligned properly on target, whether that's from compressed high ready or from a holstered position. As you present out, you're either going to see that dot or you're not. If you don't see the dot in your window, you have a big problem right there just in presentation, and that's even before you get to a trigger press. So again, the two things that I like about a dot over a laser is that one, you get all the benefits that a laser would provide you. As you're on target and you break your shot, you can see whether you would or would not have disturbed the sights through the cycle of a trigger press. But the added benefit of a dot over a laser is that I can break down my presentation, press out, and either see that dot or not see that dot and train accordingly. Now, I have to preface this next part here by saying I don't actually care what your opinion is. To be honest, I don't even care what people's opinion of the app is. The app suits my needs well. I like it. I'm going to continue to develop it in a direction that I think works for me and other shooters who are thinking about this the way that I do. But these videos, I care even less what you think about what I have to say. So just bear that all in mind as I make my next sort of statement here. As far as dot manufacturers go, there's only one that I would consider for myself, and that's Trijicon. I've seen every other major manufacturer's dot fail on the range over the last couple years, and I've never seen a Trijicon RMR or SRO fail on the range. So for that reason and that reason alone, My opinion and the recommendation that I give anybody who asks me is to buy a Trijicon product and nobody else's. That's, again, my opinion. I'm sorry if that hurts your feelings. It just is what it is. So if you haven't closed out of this video yet and you're still with me, once we get into Trijicon, there's really only two options. There's the RMR and the SRO. And I always steer people to the RMR every single time. Not for the typical reason that most people pick RMR versus SRO. I hear a lot of talk in the gun shop that an SRO window is so much bigger and the glass is bigger and it's going to break easier and blah, blah, blah. Maybe that's true. I mean, it seems to make sense. Bigger glass, more, I guess, chance that you could break it. But I've never seen one break, and I don't think that that's a particularly risky problem with an SRO. The reason that I choose RMR over SRO, and the reason I recommend everybody consider RMR instead of SRO, is because it has a smaller window. The window on an SRO is way bigger than the window on an RMR, and that poses a problem as far as I'm concerned. If I have an RMR mounted on my handgun and I present out at my dry fire target, I only get visual feedback of that red dot coming into the window when my hands and arms are aligned properly and I'm actually making a quality presentation towards the target. If I had an SRO on my handgun, there's more times where I would pick up a red dot with a poor presentation. And I just don't like that. I like the fact that the RMR is a tight, small window, and I only get that dot when I've come up well on target. I think the SRO can make people lazy, and I don't think it makes you any faster, because when you pick up those marginally aligned presentations, you still have to make sort of a micro adjustment to get that dot where you want it before you break the shot. With an RMR, you're sort of beating into your brain and into your body this very precise presentation out to the target where you pick up the red dot every single time. This is the reason that you see a lot of novice shooters say that they like the SRO better than the RMR, because they can see the dot. My response to that is, so that's exactly why you wouldn't want the SRO. Buy the RMR and just get 1,000 dry fire reps in. I guarantee you 1,000 dry fire reps later, you'll pick up the dot every single time out of an RMR window. It might only take you 100 presentations with an SRO to start to pick it up every single time, but I think you're going to have a higher proportion of poor presentations, and you're going to be creating this feedback loop that says good presentation, when in fact it's really not a good presentation that you're learning. Again, just my opinion, but for me, it's RMR over SRO every single time. I've got no affiliation with Trijicon at all. They've not supported this in any way. I've paid full price for every Trijicon product that I own. This is just my opinion that I've developed over time, and I just want to put it out there in case it's valuable to somebody else. And since we're on the subject of my opinion, and I seem to have a captive audience, I'll just go through the only other couple things that I would do to a carry handgun. I hate Gucci Glocks. I think they're a total waste of money. It's all vanity. They're ridiculous. But there are a couple things that I think increase the functionality of a carry handgun that you should maybe consider. We already talked about the dot. I would go RMR over SRO every single time. Wouldn't consider any other manufacturer. It helps me out primarily in dry fire, and obviously there's a benefit in live fire. Aside from the dot, I would get yourself a quality light. As far as I'm concerned, again, the TLR-7A is the only real option right now for a Glock 19. Part of the reason why is that these buttons articulate from the back instead of the sides, and that's just a massive benefit if you've done any kind of work with a light, and you have side pressure plates. You quickly realize that those are not as nice as the ones in the back. X300 is a great light. Just for me, it's a little bit too long. I'd rather carry the 7A. If Surefire came out with a light that fit a 19 that articulated from the back and that was flush with the muzzle, I would buy that one. But until they do, it's the Streamlight TLR-7A for me. The next thing that I would modify is I would undercut my trigger guard. You don't need to send your handgun away to a frame guy to do that. There's a lot of great frame guys out there doing great work. I'm not taking anything away from them, but you can do this yourself pretty easily. Go to the hardware store and buy a piece of small PVC pipe that's about the same diameter as your middle finger big knuckle here, and wrap a piece of sandpaper around it, and you can just take that shape and start to file away until you've undercut that thing. And really what you're trying to attack is this hard edge on this side here. If you get a bunch of reps in on the range, you'll quickly realize that you're irritating the shit out of your ring finger big knuckle. And if you take that corner off that trigger guard there, you're really going to feel a lot better about things. Also, it helps you get your hand up a little bit higher on the pistol. So the last thing that I would consider modifying on a Glock for carry is to throw a little magwell on there. Yes, part of the reason is that it protects as you reload, gives you a little bit of a flare to maybe make a poorly aligned reload go home. But one of the things I like best about a little magwell is that it helps, just that shape helps pack my hand up higher on the pistol, and I feel like I have a better grip. Suppressor height sights are nice if you want them. I don't think they're entirely necessary. I know I just triggered a whole bunch of people when I said that, but that's, again, just my opinion. Maybe a topic for another video another time. But I guess in order, I would say an RMR Streamlight TLR7A. I would undercut the trigger guard here so that you don't irritate your knuckle, and get yourself a little magwell. This is a Zev magwell. There's other companies out there. I think the Glock ones are actually, the Magpul ones are actually pretty decent. But the Zev one I like. That's all I would do. I wouldn't send a Glock out. I would never Cerakote a Glock. I would never send a Glock out to have any kind of cosmetic work done to it or anything like that. I guess the only other thing I would mention is that there are companies that make plates that replace the Glock MOS plate. They help take up the extra slack or slop, I guess, in how the RMR mounts to the slide itself. When you use a plate like that, the geometry of the plate actually holds the RMR for the most part, and the screws just hold it down basically into that plate, where with the stock MOS plate that comes with this handgun, those screws are primarily what's holding the RMR in place. I never personally had an issue with my Zero walking. I shot thousands of rounds to this handgun without a problem, but since replacing with a plate like that, I kind of like the setup a little bit better. I just feel it's a little bit more fail-safe. Necessary? No, but it's the only other thing that I would consider doing to a Glock. Just wanted to put these few thoughts out there in case they help somebody who's just kind of getting into this. These are all my opinions. Don't take anything I said as gospel. Go figure out what works for you. I'm just trying to shortcut somebody who maybe was about to make some of the same mistakes I made early on. Be smart about how you get into this. Go shoot other people's equipment, shoot other people's gear. Take classes before you buy a whole bunch of stuff. Like, go through the paces, and then with that perspective in mind, then start to select the gear that you think you want to go with. You'll have better perspective, and you won't just be buying stuff that people shill on Instagram or social media or whatever else. None of this stuff was paid for by anybody or sent to me or anything like that. I'm not a fucking shill. I never will be. This is my personal Glock. I bought everything on here at full retail. Yeah, these are just my opinions, so hopefully it helps somebody. We'll see you later.